sure the exact time, but I think it's pretty close to 6:30. I call this meeting to order. The first
I'll say what it is, so the
Master Plan Implementation Committee meeting. I call it to order at 6:30, and our first order of business is to adopt the agenda. I believe that you had one amendment you want to make?
Yeah, I just would like to move the announcement regarding the technical assistance to the beginning of the meeting, since I might need to leave a little early.
All right, which would be me taking item 8A and just doing it first so she can zip out of here. Anyone else have any changes or alterations they'd like to see in the agenda? Any discussion about her requested change? Do I have a motion to approve that change and the agenda?
I move we make the change.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All against? Abstentions? All right, let's move on from there.
Is there a spare copy?
You can share mine. We'll look over. All right, so normally I would go to the minutes now, but let's just zip your thing
Do
in.
the minutes. I have time. I have
Okay.
a half hour.
Then we'll do the minutes next. Did everyone get a chance to look at the minutes? I thought they were very well done. I don't have any corrections to them. Does anyone else have any modifications or corrections they want to make?
No.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move we approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Abstentions? All right, I believe it was unanimous in both votes. All right, the next item on the list then is going to be your...
Thank you. So I did send you some links earlier, a couple weeks ago, maybe it was right after our last meeting, but I did get a couple of emails that came through about free technical assistance that's available to communities. I think the timing is just sort of good in terms of when these are available. I know that they're annual offers, and I know that they are fairly competitive. They're nationally available to communities. So, but I would highly encourage you to look at least the opportunities through Smart Growth America and the EPA, because it seems like there is some overlap of opportunity to get some consultants to come in and to do some visioning workshops, some community outreach, come up with a report for recommendations on how to move forward on very specific topics. There's a lot of overlap on our strategies and the workshops that are being offered, and so if you want to move forward on this, you got to kind of do it now, because the deadlines are the end of October and early November. I did run it by the mayor and to get his feedback, and he said as long as it moved forward to implementation at some point, he was in favor of applying for these. And so I'm happy to assist on the application, but I want to make sure that there's going to be a municipal body or committee that's going to, work with these consultants and maybe be the name that's on the outreach flyers and, sponsoring events and that kind of thing. So if you haven't looked at them already, please do so, but we would need to sort of make a decision sooner rather than later.
Now, I don't remember from there, what is the application deadline?
I think it's all coming from the same pot of money, and then it gets dispersed to 5 different nonprofits, essentially, to focus some training on topics that are of most interest to those organizations. So for Smart Growth America, I think it was October 25th. For the EPA...
Today's the 11th, right? That would be at our next meeting.
EPA... where is it? October 26th. There were a couple other smaller nonprofits, like the Project for Public Spaces, which is out of New York City. I think they had applications in early November, like November 2nd.
So if anyone from this group wanted to participate, and that's how it's done individually, right? I mean, not as a group?
Well, the community would apply. The city would apply as the applicant.
Okay.
Yeah, and so...
You just want this committee to sort of...
I think so. I think it makes sense. I mean, these are... Essentially, the purpose is to build local capacity for very specific strategies that have been identified in the plan that you want to move forward on. So I think one of them that caught my eye was having to do with affordable housing. I think that's why I first started to look at it. And it was reviewing zoning for housing.
Definitely something we can always use more information on.
Smart growth zoning codes for small cities. There was one under Smart Growth America. I had complete streets identified, but that's something that's more of a personal interest of mine that's not necessarily in the plan yet. Walkability workshop audit, parking audits. So that was under the Smart Growth America. I think under the EPA, I'm sure there's any more environmental in nature, but bike share programs, supporting equitable development. So tools to help communities evaluate their needs around equitable development, identify the most effective tools and strategies to address those priorities. Preservation and development of housing that's affordable to a range of income levels. Preservation and strengthening the commercial business districts and locally important destinations, local works.
Can you remind me the expense for this?
It's
I know that he
free.
said he'd cover it. Or no, it's free though.
It's free. It's a free technical assistance. Yeah, he's not going to cover it, but he supports it.
Of course.
I mean, any grant application that the city puts forth, the mayor has to sign off on it before it can get submitted. So before I even brought it to this committee, I wanted to make sure that he was okay with even
On board. Okay.
on board with doing this. And his comment was, as long as it gets us implementation, he's fine with it.
So I see two options. This is the agenda item to talk to this, and the deadline for the most important pieces of applications is the next meeting, so we have to know before the next meeting, which means we either decide on this with this limited information and have a discussion about this right now, whether or not we want to go forward with it, or we have a special meeting. Thoughts?
Or you don't have to go for it at all. I mean, the other thing
Or
is,
that third option, yeah.
you know, the other option is this is something that's usually offered annually. If you feel like that it's kind of too much to handle right now, we can always sort of just wait for a year. I mean, there's no...
One other piece of information, what does it mean to us in terms of time? Will they come here when we have questions? Do we just call, is it like a phone number that we get?
Well, you know, if you read the material that I sent you. Let me see.
Blunt about that.
Okay, so I just printed a couple, complete streets. So, summary, 3 distinct workshops, each 1 day long, meeting the needs of communities at different stages of complete streets familiarity. 1, laying the foundation for complete streets. 2, policy development, and 3, policy implementation. Each workshop builds local capacity to implement complete streets and smart growth approaches. Highly interactive day-long workshops typically help 20 to 30 targeted decision makers, community stakeholders, agency professionals to learn how to more effectively balance the needs of all users and routinely create and maintain complete streets.
Do we
So,
have where and when?
what do you mean where and when?
Where is the workshop and when is the...
That would be your responsibility to set up. I mean, that's...
Okay, they'll
yeah.
do it based on our schedules and our needs.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's, you apply for this, they say, yes, we'll provide you with free technical assistance, and then you have to help organize workshops, get the right decision makers at the table, figure out who needs to be there. For that equitable one, let's see. It's a workshop. So each community received a self-assessment questionnaire to help identify its goals and needs, including a step-by-step guide to gathering key existing condition metrics in neighborhoods. Self-assessment will be structured around the following components: the affordable housing, commercial businesses, access to high-quality employment. In the workshop, participants will review the findings of the assessment and identify tools most relevant to addressing community priorities. National experts will lead stakeholders in an interactive exercise to match the appropriate tools to the community's specific goals and context. Experts will also provide specific options for next steps, including the identification of key community institutions and potential partnerships.
Go around the room, start with you. Do you want to act on this today?
Well, no, not really.
Anything else?
I think we just need a little more time to digest that.
Yeah.
Would support that.
I should read a little bit more. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, this is my first meeting. I'm willing to participate and act on it now. I'd be willing to, I guess one question is whether or not we would have to select, can I keep going? Say act now. Whether or not we have to select topic choices, or if that's within your decision-making power, or if you're looking for us to
I was sort
give
of,
you a topic.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that this committee would figure out what topic would make the most sense based on where your sort of priorities are. Again, I don't want to rush this, but you know, these are just opportunities that have fallen into my
Time
email box,
sensitive.
and I just want to be able to put them in front of you and say, hey, this is available. Hey, this is an option. But again, we've just started this committee, and and this is an annual thing. So if you want to give it a year and wait until next year's application comes, until you're more comfortable with what's going on and you feel more able to start taking some more direct action, and making sure that they are being aligned with what you need, then that's totally fine too. I just want to make sure that, the committee was aware that this opportunity was there.
Do you have more? Or?
So I would just say, if you have a strong recommendation and the board agrees, I'd be willing to be someone who helps get it going with whatever assistance might come along or be needed.
That's exactly what we want to hear.
I would think the transit-oriented development workshop would be something that would be useful, though one of my observations is, I don't know how useful it is for me as an individual. I would think that would probably go to the zoning board, or, what I'm saying is, well, if this is geared towards how to develop basically, new construction in the town, I don't know how important I am in the scheme of new buildings in town. But I would think that, transit-oriented development would be one of the implementation of some of our goals. The walkability also, although out of the two, I tend to think the walkability is probably something we're more capable of doing on our own if we need to make a choice. And as much as I see no reason to delay if we agree that it's a useful thing, I also would be concerned about my personal ability to manifest, 20 or 30 people and organize in a short duration. So in a way, I'm saying I think I can agree that we need it. I probably also am feeling a little crunched for time and concerned about how effective I would be in a short amount of time.
Yeah, and I also feel the same way, given how quickly this is coming upon us, and given that we've just started, I think this might be something that you could make better use of next year.
Okay. Having heard everyone's opinion, I think that was a strong sentiment of the entire group, that more information, more time to kind of put it together. One question I have for you is, if we were, just assume that we were to go ahead with this and approve it today and say, yeah, we want to be a part of it, would we have to then set it up? Would we have 6 months to set it up and could do it in the middle of the 1 year period?
This is due in October. You wouldn't even be notified till December. I think it said in there that the workshops wouldn't even happen until spring. So
does that affect anyone's opinion?
It's not like we have to figure everything out in the next
right away,
week.
yeah.
It's just that you're putting the application and saying, this strategy is a priority because of X, Y, Z.
I was hoping
These are
you'd
the
say
people that would probably be the key stakeholders. And I want you to just to respond to your comment that you think it'd be under the zoning board. How I see this committee functioning is lighting the fire under the feet of those boards that are busy reviewing plans, doing permanent decisions, that might need to be reminded that there's other things that they're supposed to be doing. And your job is to sort of make sure that that's happening. So to me, this is very much under this board, and that's why I'm presenting it to this board, and I didn't take it to the planning board because, your job is to sort of get these ideas percolating to the top of people's radar screens so they know what's happening and are willing to come to the table. The planning board isn't going to spend the time doing that because they're doing that sort of day-to-day technical review stuff. So I just want to make that sort of clear.
Yeah, given the information that it's just the application now,
Right.
and then months before implementation.
And again, it's extremely competitive. It's not, I can't even guarantee we're going to get anything either. It's
Right.
just,
But it doesn't sound like it'd be realistic to actually put together an application in 2 weeks.
probably not. And even on my own time frame, it's a tight.
What's involved in the application?
I went and looked at it very quickly. I don't know if I spent a lot of time looking at it. I might have downloaded the Smart Growth one. So, why are you applying for this Smart Growth tool? How will it help your community overcome barriers? So you probably have to talk about the specific barriers to that issue. What's the community's interest in smart growth solutions? What's the community's need for technical assistance? what level of our community leaders committed to pursuing smart growth? How does the community purpose to implement the smart growth solution once assisted and received? And these are 125 word limit on each of these different things.
It looks like 3 or 4 hours of work to me,
Probably
from what I'm seeing.
about a day, I'd say. Yeah. And then a letter signed by the mayor or comparable elected leaders. Yeah, so a letter committed by the mayor.
Let me ask a slightly different take on it. Would we have access to some of these tools outside of this methodology? Could we potentially do the same, accomplish the same goal, same end result?
Sure. I mean, we could go to other entities. We could go to, Pioneer Valley Planning Commission and ask them to give a presentation on, complete streets if we wanted. So this isn't like a one-time thing, but it's getting nationally recognized experts to come in. And again, more of the focus is getting that grassroots community interest and buy-in to a topic, so that before you go ahead and try to push an idea, there's already community support for that idea, because there's been some, whatever.
Is this something you'd have a better chance of getting if you partnered with Northampton, Southampton, or something like that, and did it?
As a group, that's an interesting idea.
There's a,
I mean, that would be, like not for this year's application, but maybe next year.
Maybe.
It would, I think, because
That might
we're
be
looking at
an
30
idea.
people, we got, what, 8, right?
I'd like to move on, so what I want to do, having heard everyone's discussion, I'd like to put this to a vote as to whether you guys want to take action immediately. That might mean having a special meeting to put it together, designated someone who wants to start the process of putting the plan together, or whether you want to wait till next year. So can someone put forward a motion of some kind to that effect?
Was there a middle ground then?
What would you like to see in the motion?
Well, if they come up every year, or similar type things that, we spend some time investigating, researching, trying to determine what would be one, so that a year from now, we're not saying, oh, we didn't do that, so.
We can create an item that we can put on the agenda to continually look at this, but I want to get a response, I'm sorry, that's not it, on that specific issue, so that we know as a group what we voted. We didn't want to act on this one time. If it ever comes back to, well, why aren't you a part of it? I want us to know why we weren't a part of this, or why we do decide to be a part of this. So what I'm looking for is a kind of a resolution from this group as a whole, in or out.
I just, one more time, would like a little clarification on, that just seems like 3 questions on a form. That's all that actually?
No, it's more than that.
Yeah.
I mean, here, I'll show it
It's
to
like
you.
3 pages.
I'm trying to get it, yeah, so it's, what would it take to fill it out and take a shot? If it's just a matter of answering some questions
think
and
it's-
mailing it in.
Yeah, someone's solid day of good writing and a little bit of research.
It's,
So 8 hours of writing and some research.
And it's 125 words per block is your limit.
So it's a time.
It's it's at least a day or two, with interruptions. I mean, that's.
So is that something that I can share with you or not, in terms of?
Sure, I mean, if somebody wanted to help, that would be great. And again, I don't want you to feel pressured that you need to do this. I just, that this
It's an opportunity,
opportunity that came through my email, these are time sensitive, I wanted to put it out there. If you don't think it works for now, that's totally cool.
I'm wondering if there's a hot topic, just to get, if there would be some kind of resolution to consider one topic that could be applied for, and with some kind of deadline to make that decision, whether it's now or,
Well, the application has to be in by the time we meet, and it's the 25th and 26th, we meet on the 25th. So we either approve having you draft something and getting it out, or having a special meeting to review what you draft
I mean,
and that you draft.
let me take a step back. Let me throw out the workshop topics, and you let me know whether any of these sound appropriate given the discussions you've had so far. Do you want to do that?
Sure.
Okay, implementing Smart Growth 101. Planning for economic and fiscal health.
So,
Regional planning for small communities. Sustainable land use code audit. Smart growth zoning codes for small cities. Complete streets. Walkability workshop.
What was complete streets again?
Complete streets is, the whole concept of complete streets is that you basically redesign a street so that it's multimodal, so that you can have car traffic, pedestrian traffic, bike traffic, all designed so that everybody's got their locations, and it's designed in a way that traffic can flow.
That would fall
I have them
into,
in Portland, Oregon, I was just there.
Really?
that would fall under our
I think it would be interesting.
Yes.
I'd like to see that happen on Union Street personally, but I just don't know if there's enough space to do a complete street on Union
I
Street.
like the sound of the walkability too.
Which is a separate one that we haven't gotten to, I think, so.
But if you haven't, if you haven't read the fact sheets that are associated with each one, I mean, I only printed out.
I read the ones that I thought were interesting.
Then I don't know if it's enough information just to have the topic, but anyway, that's good.
Yeah, we have a lot to discuss tonight
Right.
besides this, so that's why I want to try and get a resolution. Do we want to set, it looks like Maureen's willing to take the torch and run. Do we want to set Maureen loose on a couple ideas?
Are we talking about a co-working?
Well, I'm sure we can get other people to assist, or I mean, we'll hope to do that.
Well, that's assuming that Jessica.
How about this? Why don't I leave it with you? If I have to duck out, you can pass around, you can look at the material, and you can make a vote at the end of the meeting or something? I don't know. Or do you want to wrap it up now?
Yeah, it needs to be during the agenda item so I can move on because we're following the agenda. So it's now or never.
You can't put it up to the end? No.
Well, we could have a special meeting. We could modify the agenda now, or
You can't table it to the end of the meeting?
would you like to do that?
I don't care. I'm just throwing stuff out.
I was just going to throw out, can you say that best efforts will be made to identify a topic and make an application and it's done or it's not done?
By whom?
Can you do that? By designated people. And
So-
then the topic is...
So we need to pick the topic and then designate the people now, if everyone agrees that that's what we want to do. That's why I'm trying to get like a resolution vote to agree that that's sort of the direction we want to go, so we can either do that and set us on that path or not. So let's just start with a motion. I make a motion that we're going to designate Maureen and try and get additional people right now and pick 2 topics to see if it's possible for us to put forth applications and then hold a special meeting to review it in 1 week, solely for the purpose of looking at that material that's been put forward, the application, and saying, yes, we approve that, send that off. That's the motion as it stands. Is there a second?
Second? Yeah, we're both doing the same thing.
Discussion?
Yeah.
Is there discussion? Personally, I plan on voting against this, but it's, I mean, that's what we're considering. Any discussion? Going once?
Kill it, man, kill
Going
it.
twice?
All right. I second the motion. I second the
All right.
motion. And
All in favor? All against?
I
All right.
done.
Any abstentions? We'll look at it next year, I think.
Sure, that's fine.
Just saved you a day.
Probably.
All right, on my agenda there, we moved our announcements up. Since we're technically in the announcements section, any other announcements that anyone has? No? Then we move forward into public comments. We have no public. Old business. We had discussed 2 quick and easy items. We're going to go over the things we talked about last week. Jess, do you have, just so when you leave, can you bring in that paper that we wrote all the extra ideas on in case we get through this?
No, I'll wait, yeah.
Because I'll need to know what we have to pick next.
Okay.
Zoning review.
That was me, right?
Yeah, did you have any kind of
Yeah, so I
conversation?
went to the Housing Partnership meeting. They think it's great because they're actually looking for sort of the next thing to do in their world, since Everett Street, East Street properties are moving forward and Parsons is complete. And so what they're going to do is at their next meeting, they're all going to go back and they're going to look at the master plan chapter themselves, and they're going to think about the zoning, because I asked them to be more specific about what exactly in the zoning is problematic in their eyes in terms of affordable housing. And then they're also going to look at other goals and strategies that they believe, maybe the zoning has actually been taken care of at this point, because there was some revisions to the multifamily section. And so there could be another topic that might be a higher priority for them. They're going to discuss that in November, and they asked a representative from this committee to attend on December 5th. So that's where that's at.
Where are they meeting?
They meet right over there in conference room.
Should be December 5th. Do we know
It's the first Wednesday, 6:30.
6:30. Who here is most interested in the zoning review?
It was,
I don't know if Allison or Jason were involved.
I
Jason.
believe Jason was the one who moved
Jason.
that.
Yeah,
Jason.
So what?
He had the more technical
right,
piece
he's
in that area.
So,
closer to it.
unless there's some disagreement here, I will email Jason and ask if he wants to attend that meeting. If he fails to, I'll try and attend personally. And if for whatever reason, looking at my schedule, that I can't, I'll just put out, we have some time, I'll put out at the next meeting that we're looking for someone to fill that role. Is anyone here really interested in being that person, just in case? Talk to Jason, got it.
I'm gonna go get those sheets and bring back.
Thank you. Any more commentary about the zoning review? Then let's talk farmers market events, enhancement, and promotion. Talk to the Ag Commission?
I've not talked to them yet. Took a little bit to get the contact information. Jessica was kind enough to supply that. Did go and visit them with an eye towards this, and my expectation is to have the conversation next week
Great.
after tomorrow.
What were your impressions of the group when you visited them?
It's nice, but I think it really could profit from the notions that we were inferring. The general feel was very low-key and practical, if you will, and the people that we talked to seemed very open to expansion of the market, and it seemed like there's plenty of room, both physically and non-physically. So my impression is that it's a good idea and that it'll get support. And to make a long story short, I'd actually misidentified the commission at first and was looking up the wrong people, and then Jessica set me straight, and my first attempts to contact Barbara or whoever it was haven't met with success yet. So.
Okay. No problem. It seems to me, and I want to get everyone else's take just briefly, but it seems to me that we've got the right person in the right position to get information. It's going to take a while to grow, and that we can consider the ball rolling on that as far as the farmers market event. Is there anything anyone else wants to add there? Then let's move on to the wellhead protection plan.
Yeah, okay, I guess that's me, huh?
I'm really happy you're here.
Yeah, it would do. Well, as far as I can determine, we have a lot of the pieces of the puzzle in place. We already have the aquifer protection ordinances, and the biggest problem we have now is that the Zone 2 has not been accepted by the DEP for the Maloney well. I still have to do some homework.
What does that mean exactly?
Well, they don't like our assumptions on it.
So, is it not in use, or is it, I mean, what is
The well
that?
itself?
Yeah.
The well is actually, we use it as a backup supply in case we need it, so we're not using it right now, no. But that really doesn't have anything to do with the Zone 2 being accepted by the DEP. They have one concept of it, and we have kind of another concept of it. It's just kind of a little complex to get into, in this, I want to keep it a little brief. But I don't really know who I need to talk to actually determine exactly where everything is on this. So it's basically,
DEP?
somebody in the DEP, somebody
Department
in
of
some
Energy Protection.
environmental protection.
Environmental protection, okay.
They did delineation probably 10 years ago. And we're trying to say that there's a clay layer which would protect the aquifer in the center of town, and they're saying that that's probably not true. So kind of loggerheads with that. But the exact status of that, I really don't know, so I have to find out who knows. And I'm not sure where to start looking with who knows what on that.
So would it be geologists, or what kind of,
Well,
just in terms of the science?
Jessica may know something about it. City engineer may know a little bit more. They don't always tell me these things. But, like I said, as far as the other wells, I think we're in pretty good shape. We just maybe need to go, review it all and make sure all the pieces are there.
Does a plan actually exist? Is there like a physical document that is the wellhead protection plan?
That, I don't know.
Okay.
That probably wouldn't be a bad thing to actually do that. Then you could actually put all the pieces together and see if it actually makes an interesting picture. That'd probably be the best way to do it, because I know a lot of the parts are there, It's just whether everything's there and whether it's effective the way it is. I guess that's the question that we need to answer.
Yeah, it definitely seems to me like some organization is required. Does anyone else know anything about it? He's the expert.
What's your position, or what do you do for a
I
living?
work for the water department.
The water department?
Yeah.
I missed on the interest.
Miss the intros, so we haven't got to.
Was I supposed to do? No, I pulled them off because we're on our third or fourth meeting. I apologize.
It's all right.
I don't mind tossing them in real quick. No one on camera will
No,
probably know this.
that's good.
I'm Jim Zarvis. I'm the chair, Planning Board, Master Plan Implementation Committee, ex-Local Works, and also the Economic Development Industrial Commission.
Mike Serwick, I work for the water department, I'm the water quality guy. Also on the historical commission, so
Everyone's got a couple titles there.
there's probably something else there.
I'm Kurt Zellin, I'm the secretary.
I'm Neil Parks, and I'm an artist and teacher.
Maureen McMahon, I'm a lawyer and mediator.
And I'm John Bruner. I was on the master plan committee, so I'm now on the implementation committee, working at
Wendy Taylor Jordy, and I was also on the master plan committee. I'm also on the highway business committee.
And you know Jessica, I'm betting.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a brief little intro we put in for Marine's benefit. Listen, real quick, we were talking with Michael, and it seems like a wellhead protection plan, an actual document, doesn't exist currently.
Do you need one?
I don't know. The only way we would probably need one is to make sure that what the state likes to see is all there.
Okay.
So maybe more like not just a document, but an outline,
Okay.
putting all the pieces together.
Okay.
The only thing, I mean,
What is our goal with this line item? What do we want to do?
protect the aquifer.
right, yeah.
So it seems to me some sort of document would, lay out for people in the future that might do something that might put the aquifer at risk.
Right.
What the rules are.
Yeah,
So,
well,
I can't imagine a document wouldn't be
The
about.
ordinance covers a lot of that, but there's other components to it, so,
The aquifer section of the ordinance covers? Yeah.
yeah.
Where are all the wellheads? This is where I always get tripped up.
Where?
Where are they?
Okay.
How many do we have and where are they?
There's 5.
There's 5. Most of them are down on Hendrick Street, right?
There's actually, there's the well field on Hendrick Street, which
Right.
consists of 106 or 108 or 109 wells, and then the Pines well behind that, but they both go to the treatment plant.
Okay.
There's in Nonotuck Park, there's the Nonotuck well, which is over by Booster Field, and there's the Brook Street well, which is between the end of Brook Street and the soccer fields, past the soccer fields, and then the Maloney well, which is,
The one up by Ferry Street, right?
they're next to the old mills and whatnot behind there.
Yeah, okay.
Which one is the zone 2?
Zone 2 is basically, what the recharge area is for the aquifer.
It's not one of those 5.
It's most of those 5. There's 4 of
It
them.
encompasses all of those 5. Yes.
That's all backup. Because you just said zone 2 was in backup and wasn't
Well,
approved.
no, the Maloney is the one I was talking about. Yeah.
Maloney's
But the
the
zone
one-
2 is part of each well, is what's the recharge area.
I see.
That's according to the state. Now, do you know what the status is on the zone 2 for Maloney?
I think this is about extending it, extending the zone
Or
2.
getting accepted by DEP?
I don't know what the status is. The last time I had a conversation was with Patty Gambarini
Yeah.
at a BayPAC meeting.
Yep.
And she had just basically said, this is something that we've talked about, but the whole issue is, nobody knows where the defining line would be.
Right.
Because there's these
Clay layer.
clay layer and these holes basically in the aquifer, and so nobody knows exactly where to put the boundary, was my understanding. But you
Sounds
would
pretty
know
good.
more than I would.
That's about what I know.
Okay.
But, the thing is, the DEP was, it's up to them to accept the zone 2.
Right.
And they haven't accepted it because they have a different view of it than we have. I
Right.
guess.
Their modeling is different than what?
Yeah, or,
Who's the guy from UMass? No, Hampshire College. Who's the scientist?
are you talking about Bob Newton?
Yeah, Bob Newton.
Smith.
Smith.
Yes.
Smith,
Yeah,
whatever.
everybody's Smith.
Michael, can I ask you to do something?
Sure.
You are far and away the most knowledgeable here about this issue as far as I'm concerned. You're
He
very
knows more than I
close.
do.
Okay. So what I think we really need to know as a committee, because we're very motivated, we chose this as one of the first things we wanted to focus on, so I think clearly that shows it's important to us. Can you, at the next meeting, come back with what you'd really like to see this committee do to help? Is it a written document? Is it making a committee to be in charge of this? Is it help interacting with some other committee? What do you want from us? That's what I
All
can
right,
do.
all right, so for the next meeting, I'll come back and see.
And do you think it would make sense, sorry, I don't mean to complicate it, but would it make sense to do just a wellhead protection plan for just the Maloney well because it's outside the zone 2? Or would it make more sense to do all 5 if we're gonna do it at all?
How about, I'll answer that at the next meeting. When
Okay, you think
find
about
out
it.
exactly what I want to do with all of them. you know?
Okay.
And Michael,
See what I have, what
some
kind
of
of
your
information I have.
research or investigation takes more than the next meeting, and we need to...
It may, because I'm going to be on vacation next week, so.
Totally cool. All right. We've got time to make it work right. That's the goal.
But yeah, I should have time, following week, so.
Okay, so
I'll look at-
I'll line item in for the meeting after next.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Any other questions about that issue? Let's move on to the next line item, which I don't have in front of me here.
Sorry.
Transportation Committee, really cool.
So I had I sent Jason Duda an email, and then I saw him very briefly before the licensing meeting 2 weeks ago. And he was gonna stop by and we were gonna chat about it, but we haven't had an opportunity to do that yet. So he knows it, he's aware of it, he just needs to swing by and give me his thoughts about what he wants to do, and I'll see if I can get him here at a meeting to talk to the committee. as
I
well.
saw him the other day, and he supposedly was going to be here tonight.
Oh, he was?
No.
Oh,
Yes.
I haven't talked to him, I just saw him right before the licensing meeting,
Yeah.
so hopefully maybe at the next meeting he might show up, and we'll get him here, let's
Okay.
see what I can do.
I know that, again, another issue we all feel important about, and we definitely need Jason to pitch in so we can move forward. So if we don't have him by next meeting, let's take more extraordinary measures to get him here. Okay?
I don't know what that would be.
All right, any other questions about that issue? As far as the Whitebrook pool, I actually spent quite some time researching it. I started by calling...
Excuse myself, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Okay, thank you.
I started by talking with Peter Gunn, and we had a great conversation about what was going on there, and I'm sure we've all heard that the Whitebrook pool suffered from an HVAC problem. I later talked to Pete Roy, who does the building management over at Whitebrook, and the problem specifically is that the pool at Whitebrook, and there's other pools that have a tendency to do this, so there's another one in the nearby community, I forgot where exactly, that has the same problem and is down right now, which we'll talk about in a moment is a real problem for us, the fact that there's another one out there competing it down. But the problem is that they kept the temperature in the room less than the temperature of the water, and this creates a humidity problem that degraded the building overall. So now, because of that, they're in a situation where they need $480,000 to replace the HVAC system at the roof. Once that's done, in order to get the pool up and running again, they have to put all new tile markers in, change the numbers, follow new ADA rules for handicapping. So there's a lot of funding into actual renovation of the pool, as well as regrouting the entire pool because it's been down. In conversation with the mayor I had about this, and he was great, he seemed to think that that additional funding wouldn't be so bad to manage. It's really the initial funding. I also tried to contact Nancy Fonsby. I wasn't able to get a hold of her, but in conversation with the mayor and with Peter Gunn, what's going on about getting monies for this? There's a group, the Massachusetts School Building Association, and they have a great website. I recommend going to it and checking it out. And they have something like $8 million. And what happens is you put in the list of things that you'd like to have fixed, and they approve certain things for their budget. And we just had our wonderful new school approved. It's not impossible. You could get a group together to try and push the funding for Whitebrook. There's already a proposal in there. I think it's the $8 million proposal I'm referring to. The Building Association, they have more money than that. But the fact is they approved the new school component, but haven't approved the other components that were in there, such as Whitebrook. And it's unlikely that that's going to happen while another project is going on for political reasons. So this ends, end of spring, early summer, and that's the point at which it's going to be time to pick up the ball and start pushing. But again, you've got another community that has a pool down nearby, I forgot exactly where, forgive me, but for the same reason, so there's competing interests in this. So at the end of the day, I think what we've kind of come down to is Whitebrook is next on the list for getting funding to fix, and they've got tons of problems beyond just the pool there, the roads and all the other issues. And I think that the committee that was put together, Michael's committee, Michael Burley, for the school, is either going to be the committee to kind of push that task, or some new committee will be chosen. So we've got basically to summer to go through with it. And one other piece, in 2007, that building association that I told you about changed the way they do business. It used to be you put in applications. Now they invite you. So we no longer, from the mayor on down, the school board, we no longer have the ability, unless there's, backroom deals, which I'm unaware of, and hopefully that's not the case. But we no longer have the ability to say, hey, we want to do this. Now you have to wait for them to come to you and say, we're looking for something to do for your community. We're looking to... New treasurer was picked in 2007. He changed the system in which they give out money. And so, really, it was very hard to get information. One hand didn't know what the other was doing in this because no one knows. Because the entire system is blocked by this building association. So that's what I know. So I figure this item should be tabled essentially until late spring, early summer of next year, at which point I'll give Nancy Fallensby a call again and say, okay, it's done, Whitebrook's next. How do we get a committee together to start politicking, creating awareness to get that pool fixed? It doesn't seem like it's going to happen sooner than that. In fact, Pete Roy, the building guy, currently has his desk at the bottom of the pool. His office.
Under the shelf. Got a rope climbing down.
Okay, so I don't think that's gonna. So that's that. Any questions about the issue? Sorry, I go on and on. All right. Member introduction. Oops. Yeah. Well, we've already done that. So I did want to mention that we had two members that are absent today. They notified me. Jason and Allison, who've been here at other meetings, they should be here again at the next meeting. It's time now to go through this list. Actually, what time do you have? I didn't bring my phone today. So
It's 7:10.
7:10. So we typically go an hour. We've got 20 more minutes. Do you want to pick some new items from the list, or do you want to just call it early? What do you want?
I haven't seen the list yet, so...
Yeah, plus I'd like to, I looked through and realized that none of the material that I think most of us reviewed had one thing that I'd like to propose as a possibility
Do you want to add to this?
for consideration. We can vote on whether we want to add it or not, but there's just one thing that is time sensitive and a possibility.
All right, so this was a list of the quick items that we wanted to go through here, and everyone at the meeting before last was asked to pick two quick items, and then we went through and we ended up selecting by way of vote, getting everyone vote, and then putting the weighted system together. This one, and this one, and this one. We have a few items that are left. We have another item that someone would like to add, and I'm also going to try and give any other opportunities to add to the list. And we still have these items, this 1 through 25, with a little extra. Some people added some other comments, and I don't have the notes for what those were, so we're going to have to resolve that problem. But these are from the page 8 in the master plan, which lists 25 top strategies. And the ones that we chose to act on, we've just discussed, were here, and we need to now kind of go through the remainder. It'd be very easy for the rest of us to say, oh, well, let's just go with the ones that were voted most highly previously and go through those. Or we can vote to go through a whole new weighting system. Ultimately, I'd like to do what's going to get us on some new topics as quickly as possible. So I just want to kind of go around the room here and say, let's start with you. Do you want to add anything new to this list today?
Off the top of my head, I can't.
No?
Can I ask a question? Did Jessica, I think in your minutes you said that Jessica went through and crossed out or updated certain ones. Is that part of this? Strategies that have already been taken care of?
Yeah, she discussed with us items 1 through 25. She gave a little piece of paper. Does anyone have that handy? I might have it in my notes somewhere. I'll make sure you get that.
All right,
You definitely
yeah.
want to. But she basically gave us a rundown of where items 1 through 25 stood.
So all of them are active, under consideration?
Here it is.
Everything's, yeah, thank you. I'm
Is
sure
that
you can give that back. They'll need a copy of that. But I'll ask Allison to get you a real copy. That's just for you. Everything taking this on consideration and anything else that's not just on page 1 through 25, but also another, this was really a convenience,
Yeah.
if that makes any sense.
I'm happy to go forward with what's there.
And once we run out with it, we're going to go through the book and get more. How about you, Michael? Got anything else you want to add to this for now, or do you want to work off of this list for now?
Let's see. Well, I think we're working on this for right now.
I do, yeah, especially with the consideration of time constraints. On the historical subcommittee, one of the agenda items we created was a survey of our, I don't know if everybody knows this, but down near the Oxbow, that's the location of the original settlement, and even an Indian settlement down there. And when I was on the Heritage Landscape Committee, we had a survey done for, they call it heritage landscapes, basically, you know, the geographical locations that might be of historical importance. Not only did they point out, the folks that came from the state, that was a site of interest, but that because it's still just farmland, it would be easy to get a historical survey, which basically means probably somebody from UMass comes with a ground penetrating radar. And they were urging us to do that sooner rather than later because of the potential for development, because it's privately owned. So it's a time-sensitive thing. If somebody comes and does something there, then you can't tear down a building to do ground survey.
Along those lines, too, there's a guy that's interested in building a brewery on Fort Hill Way.
Yeah.
So you're probably aware of. And I got one letter at the Historical Commission of somebody that was concerned that there was an Indian settlement somewhere in that area. So,
A relevant issue.
yeah, definitely.
All right, so what I'm going to ask you to do is think about what you just said in a short sentence or two as a motion that we're going to make in just a few moments to add it. But before we add that motion, Kurt, anything you want to add today, or do you want to work off this list?
List is fine.
It's fine. Okay. Can you make a motion for us?
I'd like to make a motion that we add a crown survey? Crown survey? Does that work? Crown survey? A survey of historical geography.
And we wouldn't do the survey per se.
No,
we would go
hire
and-
someone, bring someone in.
Right, or find a committee to
Right.
to run that. Okay. All right, so we push for a survey of,
The Paskimic settlement would be the way to put it.
do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion?
Yeah, one question.
Yeah.
Identifying any and all historical or just?
Well, I guess we could start with this one, although the Fort Hill location might be doable in the same survey. I don't know. We'd have to ask them. Those are the two spaces that are still pristine, if you will, that if we brought in a team, they'd do the survey. That's all it really gets us. But then it identifies, first of all, if they find something, they can say, oh, look, there's evidence of a foundation here, or whatever. And with that identification, then we can move forward.
Okay, so this is a motion that essentially gets us as a group to push forward having a survey done, to not necessarily doing a survey, but finding the right people. All right, we've had any more discussion? I'm calling for a vote now. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, all against? I abstain because I just don't feel I know enough about it. So I'd like to find out more information. I think that vote passes. We're going to add that to the list. Who's got the best handwriting here? Marie's got a pen. You're up.
I have the
Right
worst
over there.
handwriting. I hear that.
And we'll call it survey.
Historical landscape survey?
Okay, great. That's good. What he said. All right, now, I'm adding it to the quick stuff because you said that it's time sensitive, and I'm going to go through this quick stuff again real quick and give everyone just a couple votes because that's an easy way that we can do this. And then I'm going to just take the top numbers that we've got off of here and continue to work down off of those. I'm just going to add 2 items from this list. So what's going to happen is we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these things right here, and I'm just going to take a single vote right now. Everyone just gets 1 vote.
Can we, I just need a reminder of what those numbers represent.
Sure. If someone could just open the master plan and turn to page 8. And if you'd be so kind as to read in the most dramatic voice you have.
Yes.
Number 1.
Adopt a Chapter 40R Smart Growth District.
Yes. which is also, we have 40R.
Right.
We'll be proceeding with it, and there's a really interesting idea, working with Southampton, where there's a potential to do more of this at the border, Big Y, between the two. They've come before us, the planning board. It's a neat idea. Hard to get off the ground, but both sides are interested. So we'd be talking about that. Number 2?
Maintain and extend the Manhan Rail Trail to Northampton, Southampton, Nonotuck Park, the schools, and other community facilities.
Part of that's been done.
All right, but there's more always to do. I love that trail, and I'd love to see it constantly get its maintenance and attention. Number 13.
Include affordable space for artists as part of the continued renovation of our mill buildings.
Another important thing, especially with us being, having an artist renaissance. Is that what that? Need to put that? Sure. 14.
Inspect and evaluate each school building for possible reuse, demolition, or sale.
2017, in conversation with Mayor Mike, they're talking about finally getting to elementary schools after they're done with White Brook and our overall budgets. So, we'd have some discussion there. And finally,
19. Work with developers, property owners to create infill housing in downtown areas.
okay, so recap. 1, quickly.
Adopt the Chapter 40R Smart Growth.
2,
Maintain and extend the Manhan Rail Trail.
smart growth trail. 3,
13. Include affordable space for artists.
artists.
14.
Trail, artist.
Inspect and evaluate each school building.
Schools. So smart growth trail, artist, school building, and
19. Work with developers, property owners to create infill housing in downtown areas.
you've heard them all. You each get to raise your hand but once. I'm going to start over here. Raise your hand if you would like to go for...
Adopt the Chapter 40.
Is this including the other
No,
things?
we're going to do this separately.
And those are quick items or big items?
These are the quick items, these are the big items.
First, we're voting on the big items.
Yeah, I'm going to try and take the top 2 from this list. So raise your hand if you want to talk about number 1.
Adopt the Chapter 40 or
Chapter 40R Smart Growth. All right, so we have 1. That was your 1 vote. Can you record these? That number 1 has 1? Just give it a second. Kurt, right?
Kurt's got a pen.
All right, raise your hand for number 2, which is...
You already know.
Go ahead, no, say it again.
Maintain and extend the Manhan Rail Trail.
All right, we have 1, 2 for maintain and extend the... 3 for extend the rail trail. And then for number 13, which is...
Include affordable space for artists.
Anyone? No. 14?
Inspect and evaluate each school building. Possible reuse.
All right. None? And finally,
19 is work with developers, property owners to create infill housing downtown areas.
infill housing for downtown areas. We have 1, 2, 3 for that one. Okay. So, tell us what we want.
We have a tie.
Well, I want to pick the top 2.
Oh, okay, option 2 and option 14.
All right, can I borrow a pen for a second? Anyone who's got a pen?
Yes, of course.
Option 2 and option 14.
14 or 19?
Sorry, 19.
Oh, 19, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, 14 and 19, and I'm just going to put a little second to indicate those are the second things. Great, we've got our next topics. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give everyone, we'll do it the same way we did last time, and I'll just write the cumulative number next to each one now. You're each going to get 3 votes, okay? 3 times you can raise your hand on any of these items. We're going to go through and list these items. Your voice is excellent. Would you be willing to read these items? They're not necessarily, sometimes they're numbered items on the list, sometimes they're not, up to and including the new item we just added. If anyone needs explanation on what these are, we don't have to vote right away. Let's talk about them. Go ahead. First one.
Nonotuck Park.
And it says Conservation
Management Plan.
Okay. Any discussion about that item?
What exactly?
Yeah. I can only interpret that it would be, well, number 18.
Well, the way it was written in the master plan was check with the park and determine if they have a conservation protection code.
On Jess's list, did she say anything about number 18?
It's for protecting natural
It says,
It says check with Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec, so, okay. Your second.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to go down through this list once before we actually do the vote, so we have a chance to get, go ahead.
History parade.
That's, I think, just one of the easiest things to do. It's totally not important, obviously. It's just that I can't imagine it isn't quick, easy, and accomplishable. And that's basically to try and get people more aware of the history that we have, and one of my particular bents being Native American, the fact that there was an indigenous population here that we know virtually not, most people don't know anything about.
And this would be to create a committee to actually host a parade or dovetail into some other event to have a parade.
I'm guessing probably dovetail, yeah. It would probably not be us that did it, but us that inspired someone to do it. I'm guessing ECA.
Okay, any questions about that?
Classroom projects.
That was my proposal as well, and similarly, it was brought up in the master plan committee that teachers were always soliciting ideas to tie in to town history, and that we would basically just work with teachers to come up with suggestions on how they could get students to do projects that better inform them about local history.
I like that one a lot. It's a really neat idea. And also, John, I just made an error and I want to apologize to you. I'd forgotten, you noticed that these are number 27 and 28 and that one's number 26. I just noticed that guy over there had a 3 as well. It should have been in our vote. So I'm just going to postpone it to the next meeting. It's unfairly left out, but I'm sure we'll get to it in a meeting or two.
No thanks.
I missed it. All right. I don't remember what it was, do you?
Which one are we talking about?
This was also your idea here, 26. We had 3 ideas that were added, right?
You know, I don't remember.
Okay, well, I guess no loss. Number 2.
Rail trail expansion, which was...
Right, some of them have overlap, and I think that was that our number 2?
I think we did, in fact,
Yeah, so that was number 2, so we can just get rid of this.
City website.
I can speak to it. I don't think it was my proposal, but one of the things everybody recognized in the master plan was how these days people, their first go-to point is the website, and our website is very dry and practical.
Was,
yes, that's right. It's been much improved since the master plan. So I think it was just to continue to expand on the offerings of the website.
There's always room for new and nifty stuff, and Barry's constantly asking me to do new stuff as budget allows. They've got some great ideas. But I think it's a great thing to add and talk about because more new ideas probably, good things should happen.
Transportation Commission.
That's another one that ended up in both spots.
And has already been discussed. We've discussed it on our list.
Energy Commission.
Okay, got no votes here. What did it say in the master plan about the Energy Commission? The city had an energy committee that's no longer functioning. The committee members assisted on getting green committee designation for the city. This is an ongoing designation that needs a committee to facilitate additional projects. Oh,
That's a big one.
Yeah, and that's the only reason why I haven't voted for it is because I actually don't think it's quick and easy. I think it belongs in the upper tier.
yeah. Okay. I think everyone should consider that, and I think that when we next come back to this, another meeting or two after we've broke through some of the stuff we've got on, maybe this guy needs a little bit of attention. I can't do this upside down. There we go. All right, next.
Student publication.
Public art.
Student public art. I don't remember what the intention
That, there was something in the master plan suggesting that we facilitate ways to get more student art shown around the city.
I think that's fantastic. I know Burns would be loving to do that.
Yeah.
She's over in the other room right now.
Is he? There she is.
Feels us all staring at the
All right. So what's
In fact, it was her that I was talking to that she suggested.
there you go.
Yeah.
Also regional arts collaboration.
Yes. And
Yes.
Okay. Are those kind of a joint? No, those are two different things, but they're both arts related.
Yeah.
They are, but you could consider student public art a regional arts collaboration.
Yeah, they could really
fold
be
them together.
Yeah. I don't see any reason not to do that. Does anyone in here? We have one item. We've already selected those two, so we'll skip them.
Streetscape.
Website was already done, so streetscape. And economic development.
Economic development, right?
We don't have a line item for that?
Again, I just would kind of infer that it's not a quick and easy thing,
Is
yeah.
it 26?
I don't know that it is.
It's a big thing.
But
I
it's a
could
big
easily
thing.
see where we would have voted.
I think when we did it, everybody wasn't necessarily, that's the nicest way to put it, everyone wasn't necessarily thinking that this is fast to accomplish.
Yeah.
I think they were throwing it into the quick and easy pile with a different mindset. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm speaking
Well, I
out
believe
of
the
turn.
context was hire a city economic development coordinator.
That could be
Oh,
quick.
yeah.
That might be quick.
According to the update, it's partial, well, it says complete, but I would say partially complete, as there is now an assistant city planner who's taking on some of that.
Right, and there's a lot of discussion. There's a group of city planners that believe you shouldn't have paid people for that position. There's other groups that think you should have someone like the Chamber of Commerce, myself, who's written big proposals to the mayor. There's a lot of contention about whether or not that position should even exist. The mayor has been doing some of it, so it's an interesting point. But also it talks about streetscape improvements. Those seem to me to be two totally different concepts, other than maybe improving the streets for the purpose of drawing in business, which is a stretch. So I think those are really interesting things that should be split apart and considered separately. Does anyone disagree?
Other than, I think, streetscape improvement is not quick and easy.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is consider this a separate item, like a 1 and a 2 to the rest. You've all had a chance now to look at these items that we'll be discussing at the next meeting, in addition to rotating through what we want to do. What I'm going to do now is ask you to raise your hand no more than 3 times, in other words, once for each topic. I'm going to record the number next to each one that they were raised on our system. And the first item that you have a chance to vote on is
Monotone Park.
Conservation Management Plan. Raise your hand. This is the next. Now, it's not that we're not ever going to get to these. This is the next 2 things that we're going to talk about. Anyone here for that? No? One? Next.
History Parade.
History parade, excuse me. Raise your hand if you want to start on that. None?
Classroom projects.
1, 2, 3, 4. Upside down, I think. Something like that. Okay. Next.
Rail trail expansion.
Yeah, this was crossed off, yeah. Sorry. Mozzarella.
City website.
Anyone? Okay. This is also crossed off because we've handled it.
Energy Commission.
Again, these are things that are supposed to be quick and easy.
Energy Commission.
That's our number 6 up here. And anyone? 1.
Yeah, okay.
2, 3?
Yes.
3. You started a trend. I'm sorry, I can't do it upside down.
Student public art.
And hold it in with regional arts.
Yeah,
Regional arts,
collaborations.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Something like that?
Yep.
Did I get it right?
Streetscape improvements.
This is separate from economic development. 1, 2, 3. I can't reach that. Can you put a 3 up?
Did you say 3?
Yeah, I'll put 4.
4.
No, we'll put it in 1.
All right, 5. And then economic development. Okay. And then the final one,
Historical survey.
that's my final vote. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, what are our 2 winners? I think we have a 5 in there, 2 5s.
2 5s.
So it looks like the next things we'll be discussing for quick and easy at the next meeting. I cannot read that.
Student public art and
Public
regional
arts.
arts collaboration.
And streetscape improvements. And then we'll do the same process again going forward when we run out of things. We'll just keep doing it. Can I have the time?
It's 7:30.
All right.
7:32.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
First thing we need to do is talk about the next meeting. Next meeting is going to be, I think, in conference room B, I think we have. And it'll be same time, 6:30, 2 weeks from today. Does anyone need to make any comments about that, or can we just say that's the go? In general, it's every 2 weeks.
I move we conclude the meeting.
Is there a second?
Great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.